In the dark reaches of the galaxy, where stars burned like distant fires, the Xylar flagship Dreadspire sailed silently. It was a colossal ship, a fortress of metal and energy, designed to crush entire worlds without effort. Its name was whispered across star systems, a warning to every civilization that had dared to rise. And yet, despite all its power, the Xylar were explorers first and conquerors second. They searched for life, for challenge, for prey that could test their skill and dominance. Commander Vorak stood on the observation deck, his many eyes scanning the depths of space. He was a creature of sharp angles and sleek armored skin, with limbs built for speed and strength. The Xylar had conquered countless planets, subdued species far older than humanity, and defeated foes whose technology rivaled their own. And yet today the sensors had detected something unusual. A small blue planet orbiting an average yellow star in an unremarkable part of the galaxy. "Strange readings," said Vorak, his voice a low hum that vibrated the deck. "Life forms present, but primitive. Energy signatures weak, no organized fleets detected." His second-in-command, a larger and more armored Xylar named Kerr, responded, "It appears defenseless, Commander. We should send scouts to observe. We might find food or entertainment." Vorak's many eyes narrowed. "Prepare the scout fleet. Quiet approach. I want them to underestimate us. This species should be easy prey." The Xylar ships detached from the flagship like silent predators, moving with lethal precision toward the blue planet. From their vantage, it looked fragile, almost delicate. A world of water, green land, and thin clouds that drifted lazily in its atmosphere. To them it was beautiful but meaningless, a toy waiting for their exploration. Meanwhile on Earth, life carried on as usual. People walked their cities, drove on highways, and spoke into devices that connected them across continents. In orbit, human satellites quietly monitored the stars, and a handful of observatories detected something unusual: faint signals, irregular patterns that did not match any known cosmic phenomena. Dr. Anaya Patel, a young scientist working at the Global Space Observation Center, was the first to notice them. "These signals, they're not random," she whispered to herself, eyes glued to the screen. "They're organized. Someone or something is out there." Her colleagues, tired and overworked, glanced at her with polite skepticism. "Probably just solar interference," one muttered. "Or a meteor shower." But Anaya felt the weight of a truth she could not yet understand. Something was coming. The Xylar scouts had arrived in Earth's orbit, sleek and silent, nearly invisible against the blackness of space. They began scanning the planet with advanced sensors, mapping every city, every military base, every human activity. To them, humanity was weak, tools and weapons crude, structures fragile, and yet there was a spark. A subtle, unquantifiable energy that suggested potential, something they did not expect. Commander Vorak observed the live feed from his flagship. "Prepare the drones," he commanded.
"I want full data on this species."
"Capture them, study them, and determine if conquest is worth our time." On Earth, anomalies began appearing. Satellites picked up unexplainable shadows moving in orbit. Strange interference disrupted communication signals, and military radars tracked objects moving faster than any known aircraft. Panic was minimal, as the data was ambiguous. But the unusual activity caught the attention of the United Nations Space Defense Council. Dr. Patel presented her analysis to the council, her voice steady despite her rising tension. "These are not natural phenomena. The patterns suggest intelligence. Something is watching us, studying us, but I cannot tell how advanced it is." The council was cautious. "Are they hostile?" one delegate asked. "We don't know," Anaya replied honestly, "but we need to prepare for all possibilities. Even if they seem far superior, there's no reason to assume they won't make mistakes. We must be ready to defend ourselves in ways they will not expect." Back in orbit, the Xylar began testing the planet's defenses. They launched small probes into the upper atmosphere, some invisible, some cloaked, designed to measure human responses. A few human satellites detected the probes and responded, firing tracking pulses and initiating defensive maneuvers. The Xylar noted these reactions with mild curiosity. "They are reacting," Kerr murmured. "Unexpected behavior. They are fragile but intelligent." "Interesting." Vorak's many eyes glimmered with interest. "This is exactly why we study prey before conquering. Observe, learn, adapt. Let them believe they are unprepared even while we gather knowledge. I want every human behavior recorded. On the ground, humans were largely unaware of the scale of observation. Ordinary people continued their lives oblivious to the silent eyes above. Yet in the laboratories and command centers, a quiet urgency grew. Humans worked together, sharing information, decoding signals, and building contingency plans. Even with limited technology, they displayed creativity and quick thinking, skills the Xylar had rarely encountered in a species they considered weak. In a small research facility, Dr. Patel and her team managed to track the alien probes. They calculated their trajectories and discovered they were intelligent, maneuvering with intent. "This is not just exploration," one of her assistants said, voice tense. "They are testing us, observing our reactions to see how we defend ourselves." Anaya nodded. "Exactly. And that is where we have an advantage. We are unpredictable. They expect us to be weak, slow, obedient. We are none of those things. We can adapt, improvise, and surprise them." Above the Atlantic Ocean, a pair of Xylar scouts hovered, their hulls reflecting the sunlight. They watched as human military exercises took place, small jets darting through the skies in formation. The Xylar noted the speed, the coordination, and the ingenuity, but dismissed it as limited. "They are clever for their level," Keir said, "but they are still prey. Easy prey." Vorik, however, felt a rare flicker of doubt. Across countless conquests, he had never seen a species so unpredictable despite their apparent weakness. "Continue observation," he ordered. "Do not underestimate them. Their technology is simple, but their minds, we may have underestimated their minds." The humans, meanwhile, began preparing quietly. Anaya and her colleagues designed experimental communication signals, attempting to send messages into orbit. They did not know if the aliens would respond or even understand. Yet the very act of trying was a declaration. Humanity was aware, and they would not be passive. On the Xylar flagship, Vorik studied the planet through massive observation windows. The blue ocean sparkled. The green land spread like a patchwork, and the clouds drifted lazily. To the Xylar, it was beautiful, fragile, and seemingly insignificant. Yet beneath the surface, life thrived with a stubborn persistence that even the most experienced Xylar commander could not ignore. "They fight," Vorik whispered. "They resist in ways they should not. This may be entertaining." The first contact had been made. Not with words, not with weapons, but with observation, signals, and silent assessment. Neither species fully understood the other yet, but the tension had begun. The galaxy's deadliest species had found Earth, expecting an easy conquest, and Earth, small and seemingly weak, had already begun to awaken. The stage was set. The game of intelligence, strategy, and courage had begun, and neither side would emerge unchanged. The humans did not know it yet, but their creativity, bravery, and unity were already being measured. The Xylar had come to conquer, but what they did not know was that they were about to discover something far more dangerous than weapons. They were about to discover human spirit, and for the first time in its long history of conquest, the Xylar would realize that appearances can be deceiving. The Xylar scouts continued their silent orbit around Earth, sleek and deadly, like shadows moving across the sky. They had observed humans for weeks now, studying everything, from military maneuvers to communication patterns. The aliens had expected simplicity. They had expected fear. What they found instead was unpredictability. Commander Vorik watched from the flagship Dreadspire, observing live feeds from the scouts. He noted the humans' movements, the way they organized themselves without a central command, the small experiments they conducted to understand the strange disturbances in orbit. The Xylar had encountered many civilizations, but never one that learned so quickly from limited information. "They are resilient," Kerr said quietly. "Primitive yet resilient. They adapt faster than any prey I have known." Vorik's multiple eyes narrowed. "Curious. I did not expect them to show initiative. Keep the scouts at a safe distance, but continue observation. I want to see how far they will go." On Earth, Dr. Anaya Patel and her team were working tirelessly. The strange signals and the unidentified objects in orbit had captured global attention. Governments and private organizations had begun sharing data, pooling resources to understand what was happening. Humans had no advanced interstellar technology, no fleets of massive warships, but they had intelligence, creativity, and determination. Anaya studied the satellite feeds late into the night. Her eyes were tired, but she could not stop. They are analyzing us, she said to her assistant Marco. Every movement we make, every test we run, they are watching. But that means they are learning too. If we can be clever, we can mislead them. Marco nodded. You mean, trick them? Yes, Anaya replied. We cannot fight them with weapons yet. But we can fight with our minds. With strategy, with ideas they cannot predict. The first human countermeasures were simple but effective. Engineers modified satellites to send false signals, simulating military activity in regions far from actual bases. Drones were launched to intercept and track alien probes. Humans had no large weapons in orbit, but they had ingenuity. And that was more dangerous than the Xylar had expected. The scouts encountered the first true resistance one night above the Pacific Ocean. A probe, designed to slip silently through the atmosphere, was detected by a human drone. The humans, acting quickly, disabled it, using a combination of high-frequency pulses and magnetic interference. The probe shut down and drifted harmlessly into the ocean. This is unexpected, Kerr muttered. They interfere with our technology. Minimal but effective. They are learning quickly. Orcs' eyes glinted with interest. Prepare a stronger probe. Observe how they respond. They are clever, yes, but cleverness alone does not grant survival. Test them further. The humans did not yet know the full scale of the alien presence, but their reactions were already shaping the Xylar's perception. Military forces on Earth began coordinating, using satellites and sensors to track patterns, predict movements, and communicate strategies across nations. Humanity had never been perfectly united, but now, faced with a threat they could barely comprehend, the world's brightest minds were working as one. In Europe, scientists designed a small experiment using high-powered lasers to create dazzling patterns in the sky, visible only from orbit. The goal was simple: to confuse and distract the alien probes. The first tests were successful, temporarily drawing the Xylar scouts' attention away from sensitive areas. Vorak observed the images with a rare emotion, interest bordering on respect. They are resourceful, he said. They do not panic. They improvise. This species may be more dangerous than they appear. On Earth, the public remained largely unaware of the events unfolding above. Life continued as usual, but the scientists and military personnel working behind the scenes were forming the first organized human response to an extraterrestrial threat. Drones, satellites, and communication networks were being repurposed. Humanity's greatest strength, its intelligence and collaboration, was being used to compensate for its lack of advanced weapons. In the Pacific, the first small skirmish occurred. A Xylar probe descended near a naval fleet testing the humans' defenses. The humans responded not with missiles but with strategy. They created decoy signals, manipulated radar, and coordinated movements to confuse the probe. It became trapped in a complex field of interference, unable to transmit information back to the scouts. Kerr shook his head in disbelief. They are not only reacting, they are controlling the situation. This is highly irregular. Vorak's many eyes narrowed. Observe closely. Document every tactic. I want a complete understanding of this species before we proceed. They are clever, yes, but cleverness alone will not save them from us. Yet as the Xylar watched, they began to notice a pattern. Humans were not strong individually, but they were stronger together. Every failed probe, every signal misdirected, every minor victory, built on previous attempts. Humans learned from mistakes, adapted in real time, and often turned disadvantage into opportunity. The Xylar had underestimated the speed at which humans could learn and the depth of their creativity. Dr. Patel, watching the data, realized that humans had a subtle advantage: unpredictability. The aliens expected fear, submission, and weakness. Humans did not comply. They improvised, they coordinated, they found solutions that no one had anticipated. Even without weapons capable of harming the Xylar, humans were shaping the battlefield with their minds. We may not be strong, Anaya told Marco, but we are smart. And smart can win where strength fails. They think we are easy prey, but we are not. Not at all. Vorak convened a council aboard the flagship. The Xylar had faced countless species in the galaxy, but Earth's humans were unlike any they had studied. They adapt, Kerr explained. They improvise. Their defenses are primitive, but their minds are formidable. Vorak's voice was calm but sharp. Prepare the fleet. Observation alone will not satisfy my curiosity. I want to understand the limits of this species. Test them, push them, Let us see how far their courage and intelligence can go. The humans were unaware that the Xylar were planning to escalate their observation into direct action, but their preparation continued. Anaya and her team designed decoy satellites, signal jammers, and automated drones, all controlled by adaptive algorithms that could respond faster than humans could manually. They did not yet know the full threat, but they were ready to meet it head-on. Above Earth, the first probe that attempted to descend near human installations was met with a carefully orchestrated trap. It was lured into a false signal field, entangled in electromagnetic interference and rendered temporarily inoperable. Humans watched with cautious excitement, realizing that even without powerful weapons they could influence events in space. Vorak stared at the results, unable to hide his growing respect. They are clever beyond their apparent level. It seems we may have underestimated them. Kir tilted his head, studying the planet. And yet they are fragile. They are limited. One mistake and they are gone. Vorak shook his head. No. Strength is not only measured in weaponry. Their will, their ingenuity, their ability to act together, these are strengths in themselves. Document everything. Every move, every reaction. This species, this planet. It may teach us something unexpected. Back on Earth, Dr. Patel sent her first experimental message into orbit. It was a simple broadcast designed to test if the alien presence could be detected and understood. The humans did not know if the Xylar would respond or even notice, but the act itself was bold. It was a declaration. Humanity was aware and it was ready. The first contact between humans and the deadliest species in the galaxy had not been violent, yet, but it had changed everything. The Xylar had discovered a species they thought they could easily dominate, only to find cunning, creativity, and unpredictability. And humans, small and seemingly weak, had begun to learn the presence of a predator far beyond their understanding. The game had begun. The Xylar saw a challenge where they expected simplicity. Humans saw a threat they had no choice but to face. Both sides were learning, adapting, and preparing for the next move. In the silence of space, the stakes were clear. Underestimating humans could be dangerous. And on Earth, the people, unaware of the full scope, were already proving that ingenuity and unity could stand against the galaxy's most feared species. The battle was not yet visible, not yet fought, but the first moves had been made. And in every sense that mattered, the humans were already changing the Xylar's perception of what it meant to be prey. Vorak stared at the planet below. This species may be dangerous after all. Prepare for escalation. I want to see the limits of their will. And so Earth's defenders continued to work, unaware that the galaxy's deadliest species was watching, learning and slowly realizing that the humans were far from simple. The first weeks of observation had changed the Xylar's perception of Earth. What had begun as a routine scouting mission turned into a puzzle that none of their commanders had anticipated. Vorak studied the human responses with a mixture of frustration and fascination. They were clever, adaptable, and resilient. Small defenses, improvisation, and coordinated strategies had already damaged a few of the scouts. We cannot treat them as simple prey, Vorak admitted to Kir. They are dangerous in ways we did not account for. Observe how they fight together. Their coordination is unusual for a species so primitive. Kir tilted his head.
They lack proper weapons, yet they cause damage to our technology.
It is irritating, but fascinating. How long until they can do more? Vorak did not answer. Instead, he called for a full assessment of the humans' capabilities. The Xylar would need to adapt as the humans were learning fast, their strategies evolving with every encounter. On Earth, Dr. Anaya Patel and her team were preparing for the first deliberate human counterattack. It was not a strike of destruction. They had no weapons that could harm the Xylar yet, but it was a bold move to test the aliens' limits. We can't fight them head-on, Anaya explained to her team, pointing at the holographic map of orbital activity. But we can exploit what we've learned. Their sensors, their communication patterns, their behavior, all of it is predictable if we pay attention. And humans are good at seeing patterns. Her team nodded, energized by the plan. For the first time, humans were not just reacting, they were initiating. Using AI-driven satellites and drone networks, they designed a system that could track, confuse, and temporarily disable alien scouts. The first real strike was executed over the Indian Ocean. A Xylar probe had descended near a remote naval station, curious about human military activity. It hovered silently, scanning, unaware of the trap that awaited. Humans had placed decoy signals in a wide perimeter and used drones to create electromagnetic fields. The probe entered the trap, attempting to record information, only to become entangled in the interference. Systems failed, sensors flickered, and the probe lost control. Within minutes, the humans had captured key data about its design and operational limits. It worked, Marco whispered to Anaya, eyes wide. We actually did it. Anaya smiled, a mixture of relief and pride. It's not just about technology, she said. It's about thinking differently. They expect us to panic. We do not. They expect weakness. We show none. Far above, Vorik observed the event with growing concern. What is this? He demanded. A simple species has disabled one of our scouts. Alone? How is this possible? Kerr shook his armored head. It is not strength. It is cunning. They have improvised solutions we did not predict. This is unprecedented. They are clever. Vorak's many eyes glimmered. Cleverness is not enough to survive. But this species, they are persistent. We must escalate, but cautiously. Underestimating them could be a mistake. The humans continued their preparations. Intelligence networks, military units, and scientists coordinated in ways that had never been seen before. Each success, each small victory, built confidence and knowledge. They studied the alien patterns, anticipating the scouts' next moves. In Europe, satellite engineers devised a plan to intercept a second probe. Using a combination of false signals, moving decoys, and adaptive interference, they trapped the alien craft over the Atlantic. The probe struggled against the unpredictable tactics, and humans were able to record its systems and learn more about the Xylar technology. It's like a game, Anaya said, studying the captured data. They expect fear and submission. We give them strategy and surprise. The Xylar were growing increasingly frustrated. Their scouts, designed to be the perfect observers and enforcers, were failing to return reliable data. Humans were not behaving as expected, and each failure forced Vorik to reconsider his assumptions. They are small, weak, and limited, Keir argued. They cannot pose a serious threat. Yet they interfere. They adapt. They challenge us without weapons capable of harm. It makes no sense. Vorik's voice was calm but firm. They are not simple. They are not weak. Their strength is in their minds, their spirit, their willingness to fight for something greater than themselves. Document everything. Learn from them. We will need strategy beyond brute force if we intend to conquer this world. The first human counterattack marked a turning point. It showed that humans were not passive observers, not helpless creatures. They were fighters, thinkers, and innovators. And they were already beginning to shape the battlefield, despite their technological limitations. In Asia, a network of scientists and engineers had developed an even bolder plan. They would combine the adaptive satellite system with ground-based electromagnetic emitters, creating a layered defense that could confuse multiple alien probes simultaneously. It was risky, but humans had no choice. The first test was a success. Several probes became entangled in interference, and their data streams were scrambled. The humans had learned how to predict and manipulate the aliens' movements, creating a system that could respond faster than the Xylar anticipated. Look at this, Anaya said, pointing at the holographic display. We can control the battlefield without engaging in combat. We are outsmarting them. The Xylar noticed the escalation immediately. Vorik convened a council to discuss the humans' unexpected resistance. They are small, yes, he said, but they are organized, clever, and persistent. They adapt faster than expected. This is a problem, Keir growled. Commander, they are still prey. One strike from our main fleet would destroy them. Vorik shook his head. Perhaps, but their unpredictability is valuable, and their ingenuity. It is remarkable. I want to see how far they can go. Escalate carefully. Push them, but do not crush them yet. There is something about this species that is unique. On Earth, the humans continued to prepare. They repaired damaged satellites, upgraded drone systems, and shared knowledge across continents. They were learning to work together as one species, despite political and cultural differences. Each small victory built confidence and unity. The humans' ingenuity caught the Xylar by surprise again when they managed to redirect a second probe away from a populated area using a simple decoy network and interference pulses. The aliens had expected predictable responses, but the humans were unpredictable, clever, and fast. This species does not obey logic as we understand it, Vorak admitted. They think differently. They act differently, and that is dangerous. Anaya realized that the key to survival was not strength, but strategy. Humans were fragile in a physical sense, but their ability to adapt, think ahead, and work together gave them power the Xylar had not anticipated. Every small action, every clever move shifted the balance slightly in humanity's favor. This is more than survival, Anaya said to her team. It is proof that we can face even the most powerful species and make them think twice. We are not weak. We are strong in ways they do not expect. Above Earth, the Xylar fleet continued observation, increasingly cautious. Vorak had begun to respect the human spirit, their intelligence, and their unpredictability. Every encounter, every minor human victory was recorded and analyzed. The deadliest species in the galaxy was discovering something unexpected, that intelligence, courage, and unity could rival even the most advanced weapons. The stage was set for a larger confrontation. Humans had begun to strike back, not with massive weapons but with clever strategies and bold thinking. The Xylar were realizing that conquest would not be simple, and on Earth the people, unaware of the full scale of the alien presence, had already begun to show the galaxy that they were far from defenseless. They were thinking, adapting, and striking back. Vorak, staring at the planet, said quietly, "This species may be the deadliest I have encountered, not because of strength, but because of mind, heart, and courage. We may have misjudged them. The first real battle of wits had been fought, and humans had proven themselves capable of surprising the galaxy's most feared predators. The conflict was far from over, but Earth had shown that it was not merely a small blue planet. It was home to a species that refused to be conquered easily. The Xylar had found a challenge they did not expect, and humans, small and seemingly weak, had begun to show their true strength. The Xylar fleet hovered above Earth, their massive ships reflecting the sunlight like dark mirrors in the void. Commander Vorak's many eyes scanned every movement on the planet below and every blip in orbit. Humanity had become more than a curiosity. They were now a real challenge. Each encounter with humans had revealed unpredictability, ingenuity, and courage. "They are adapting faster than we anticipated," Kerr said, frustration in his voice. "Every probe we send is countered. Every approach they predict, it is irritating." Vorak's gaze remained steady. "We cannot underestimate them any longer. Prepare the fleet for a controlled escalation. Observe carefully but engage strategically. Let us see how far this species is willing to go." On Earth, Dr. Anaya Patel and her team had been monitoring the Xylar activity around the planet for weeks. The humans' initial defensive measures had been successful, but Anaya knew it was time to take a bolder step. Observation was not enough. They needed to show that humans could challenge even the most powerful adversaries in the galaxy. "This is our chance," she told her team. "We've learned their patterns. We know how their sensors work. We can manipulate their movements and protect our planet. But we must be precise, coordinated, and united. If we fail, it could be catastrophic. If we succeed, we prove that humanity is not to be underestimated." The plan was ambitious. Using a combination of satellites, drones, and ground-based electromagnetic emitters, humans would create a trap to control the movement of a significant portion of the Xylar fleet in orbit. Decoys, interference patterns, and adaptive AI would confuse and mislead the aliens, giving humans a chance to study the fleet and even disable some of its smaller ships, temporarily. The first phase of the operation began over the Pacific Ocean. Satellites projected false energy signatures that mimicked military installations and human activity. Drones moved in unpredictable patterns, creating layers of interference that the Xylar had no way to anticipate. A small squadron of Xylar scouts descended into the area, drawn by the false signals. They were immediately enveloped in the interference field. Their sensors flickered, control systems struggled, and they became disoriented. For the first time, humans had forced the Xylar into a situation where they were reacting rather than controlling. "This is highly unusual," Kerr muttered, scanning the failing scouts. "They are actively shaping our actions. They are manipulating the battlefield with intelligence alone. It should be impossible." Vorak's eyes glimmered with a mixture of respect and curiosity. "It is not impossible. It is brilliant. Observe everything. Learn from them. This species may be more dangerous than any we have encountered. On Earth, the humans worked quickly. Data collected from the trapped scouts allowed them to understand more about the Xylar technology, their sensors, communication patterns, and movement algorithms. This knowledge was immediately incorporated into the next phase of their plan. We can predict some of their actions now, Anaya said to her team. We can control the engagement. We are no longer simply defending. We are influencing the battlefield. The Xylar, realizing that their scouts were being trapped and studied, began to retreat. Vorak decided to test humanity further by sending a larger portion of the fleet into orbit, expecting that sheer presence and intimidation would overwhelm the humans. But humans were ready. Using their adaptive networks and layered strategies, they managed to mislead the larger fleet. False energy readings caused the Xylar ships to maneuver incorrectly, avoiding the real locations of human defenses. For the first time, humans were dictating the terms of engagement even against a technologically superior opponent. This is unprecedented, Kerr said, alarmed. They control our movements without weapons capable of harm. How? Vorak remained calm. They do not need weapons. Their ingenuity, their coordination, and their unpredictability are their weapons. This is something we must respect. As the Xylar fleet struggled to regain control, a small human team launched drones equipped with recording devices to gather further intelligence. They moved carefully, using interference patterns and adaptive routes to avoid detection. Each drone returned with valuable data, allowing humans to refine their strategy further. Anaya realized that the key to survival was not brute force, but precision and unity. We are showing them that we can challenge them without destroying them, she explained to her team. Each success teaches us more, and each failure teaches them more about how resourceful we are. We are changing the game. The turning point came when the humans managed to guide several Xylar ships into an orbital formation that made their sensors less effective. The ships, caught in the interference field and relying on inaccurate data, collided lightly, sustaining minor damage. It was a momentous achievement for humanity, not a victory of firepower, but a triumph of strategy and clever thinking. Vorak, witnessing the collisions from the flagship, was silent for a moment. They are capable of influencing even the most disciplined fleet formations. This species is remarkable. Kerr, record every tactic. Learn from this. They are not prey to be conquered. They are a species to be studied carefully. The humans were aware that this was only the beginning. Every tactic they used, every trap they set was temporary, but it demonstrated a vital truth. Even the galaxy's deadliest species could be challenged by intelligence, creativity, and unity. Do you see that? Anaya said, pointing to the holographic projection. We have forced them into mistakes. They are reacting to us. For the first time, we are controlling the battlefield. The Xylar, realizing the extent of their miscalculation, began to retreat in stages. Vorak made a rare decision. He would not destroy Earth immediately. Instead, he would study humans further, understanding their strategies and their ingenuity. They had shown that strength alone was not enough to dominate this planet. This species does not submit easily, Vorak said quietly. They fight not because of weapons, but because of spirit, intelligence, and determination. We must rethink our approach. On Earth, the humans celebrated the small victories quietly. There was no grand announcement, no fanfare. They were aware that the Xylar would return, and they needed to prepare for the next engagement. But the success of the turning point boosted morale and reinforced a powerful truth. Humanity could resist, adapt, and even shape the actions of a far stronger species. In the weeks that followed, humans continued to refine their strategies. They repaired satellites, upgraded drones, and improved coordination across nations. Each engagement provided new data, new understanding, and new confidence. They were learning to fight not with raw power, but with intelligence and ingenuity. The Xylar fleet remained in orbit, cautious and increasingly respectful. Vorak had begun to see humans not as easy prey, but as a species capable of remarkable things. Every interaction, every minor victory, had shown that the human strength lay not in weapons, but in their minds and their unity. The humans are extraordinary, Vorak admitted to Kir. We have underestimated them. They survive not through strength, but through adaptability, cooperation, and courage. This species is the deadliest we have encountered. not because of what they can destroy, but because of what they can think and achieve together. And on Earth, Dr. Anaya Patel and her team continued their work, fully aware that the Xylar would return with new strategies. But humanity had learned an essential lesson. They were not helpless. They could challenge the galaxy's most feared species not with weapons but with intelligence, creativity, and courage. The turning point had been reached. The humans had proven themselves capable of more than survival. They had proven that even the galaxy's deadliest predators could be challenged. And the Xylar, despite all their power and experience, were beginning to understand that Earth was not a planet to be taken lightly. Vorak gazed at the blue and green world below. They fight differently than any other species. They adapt, they coordinate, and they challenge us without conventional weapons. We must proceed with caution. This species may change the rules of engagement for the entire galaxy. The stage was set for the next chapter of the conflict. Humans had learned to strike, to adapt, and to influence events beyond their planet. The Xylar had learned that strength alone could not dominate a species that fought with intelligence and unity. The galaxy had taken notice, even if the rest of the universe did not yet realize it. Earth was no longer just a small, insignificant planet. It was the home of a species that refused to be conquered, a species that could turn the tables on even the most formidable adversaries. And the deadliest species in the galaxy had found themselves facing a challenge unlike any they had ever known. The Xylar fleet hovered above Earth like silent giants. Weeks of engagement had shown them something they had never expected. The humans were clever, persistent, and unpredictable. Every probe, every scout, every maneuver had taught the Xylar that intelligence and unity could rival even the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Commander Vorak observed the planet from the flagship Dreadspire. His many eyes reflected the pale blue and green of the surface below. "They are remarkable," he said softly. "They fight without weapons capable of harm, yet they challenge us at every turn. Their strength lies not in power but in mind and spirit. They are dangerous." Kerr, still skeptical, replied, "Commander, they are still weak compared to our fleet. One strike and they would be destroyed." Vorak shook his head. "Perhaps physically, but strength is measured in more than just weapons. Observe their courage, their ingenuity, their unity. They survive, adapt, and influence events beyond their planet. They are not prey. They are something else entirely." On Earth, Dr. Anaya Patel and her team were preparing their final defensive strategy. It was no longer just about survival. They were ready to show the Xylar the full measure of human resilience and creativity. Using the knowledge gained from previous encounters, they designed a system to manipulate the Xylar fleet's movements while minimizing risk to Earth. "This is our moment," Anaya said to her team. "We've learned from every encounter. We know their tactics, their patterns, their weaknesses. If we succeed, we prove that humanity cannot be underestimated. But we must be precise. Every move counts." The operation began with a subtle but bold maneuver. Humans used satellites to create false planetary disturbances, drawing the Xylar fleet into specific orbits. Drones and interference grids manipulated their sensors, creating confusion without a single shot being fired. Every movement was carefully calculated, every response anticipated. A portion of the Xylar fleet became trapped in the human-designed formation. Their ships struggled against interference patterns, making small collisions and adjustments necessary to avoid damage. Humans had not destroyed any of them, but they had shown control over the battlefield. "This is extraordinary," Kerr said, alarmed. "They manipulate our fleet without weapons. It should be impossible." Vorak's eyes glimmered with understanding. "It is not impossible. It is intelligence, courage, and teamwork. This species uses what it has, its mind, its spirit, its unity. That is their weapon. That is why they survive. That is why they are formidable." On Earth, humanity's teams worked tirelessly, coordinating from continents apart. Engineers, scientists, and military personnel communicated through secure networks, adapting their strategies in real time. Every success built confidence and knowledge. Humans had learned that victory did not always come from strength, but from ingenuity and determination. Dr. Patel smiled as she watched the holographic projections of the Xylar fleet. "They think they can conquer us," she said. "But we've shown them that we are more than our weapons. We fight with our minds, our courage, and our will. That is something no fleet in the galaxy can ignore." The Xylar, realizing the scale of their miscalculation, began to retreat. Vorak made a decision that surprised even his council. He would not destroy Earth, not yet and perhaps not ever. Humans had proven themselves capable, and in doing so they had earned respect. They fight for more than themselves, Vorak explained. They fight for their planet, their people, and their ideals. They are dangerous not because they seek conquest, but because they will not submit. This is a species to be studied, not destroyed. Kerr, still uneasy, asked, "But Commander, what do we do if they continue to resist? What if they grow stronger?" Vorak's eyes softened with an emotion rarely seen in the Xylar: admiration. "Then we proceed with caution. We observe, we learn. They are not to be conquered lightly. This species has changed the way I see the galaxy. On Earth, the humans celebrated quietly. There were no grand ceremonies, no boastful claims. They had defended their planet, proved their ingenuity, and shown the Xylar that even the smallest species could challenge the galaxy's most feared predators. Yet they were aware that vigilance was necessary. The Xylar were still present, still observing, still learning. Humanity had won a battle, but the war for understanding and survival was ongoing. Dr. Patel addressed the global network of scientists and leaders. "We have shown our strength," she said, "not through weapons but through courage, intelligence, and unity. This is only the beginning. Earth is safe, but we must continue to grow, to learn, and to prepare. The galaxy is watching, and we are no longer invisible." The Xylar retreated in stages, their massive ships disappearing beyond the clouds and into the darkness of space. Vorak recorded his final observations of Earth and its inhabitants. "This species is extraordinary," he reported to the Galactic Council. "They survive, adapt, and influence events far beyond their technological limits. They are the deadliest species I have encountered, not because of what they can destroy, but because of what they can achieve together. Respect them. Observe them. Do not underestimate them." On Earth, humanity looked up at the night sky unaware of the full scale of their victory. Stars sparkled as usual, but now humanity knew that they were being watched, studied, and respected. The threat had passed for now, but the lesson remained clear: intelligence, courage, and unity could rival even the most powerful forces in the galaxy. Dr. Patel stood on a quiet hill, looking at the stars. She thought of the Xylar fleet, the scouts, the challenges humanity had faced, and the ingenuity they had displayed. "We are more than we imagined," she whispered. "We are capable. We are strong, and we will never be underestimated." The world began to rebuild and prepare, sharing knowledge and strengthening defenses. Nations collaborated, inspired by the understanding that humanity could survive, adapt, and even challenge the galaxy's greatest threats. The encounter with the Xylar became a turning point, not a moment of fear, but a moment of pride, unity, and hope. In the darkness of space, Vorak and his fleet retreated, carrying a new understanding of Earth and its inhabitants. They had expected easy prey, but instead, they had found a species of extraordinary resilience. They had learned that conquest was not guaranteed, and respect was due where it had not been expected. "The humans fight with more than weapons," Vorak said quietly. "They fight with heart, mind, and spirit. That is what makes them formidable. That is what makes them worthy of attention." Back on Earth, humanity continued to innovate, to explore, and to prepare. They were aware of the Xylar presence, aware of the galaxy beyond, and aware of the power that lay not in destruction, but in intelligence, unity, and courage. The first contact had been a warning, a challenge, and a lesson, and humans had passed it with honor. The stars above seemed brighter, not with the threat of invasion, but with the promise of opportunity. Humanity had proven itself. They had shown the galaxy that even a small blue planet could hold a species that would not bow, that would not yield, and that could rise to challenges greater than any they had imagined. The Xylar had come expecting conquest. They had left with respect, and Earth, home of humanity, stood ready, stronger, wiser, and united. The deadliest species in the galaxy had found Earth, and they had learned that sometimes the smallest creatures could leave the greatest impression. Humanity's story had only just begun.